I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this on a relationship advice forum, but here I am. It's been a whirlwind of betrayal, confusion, and now revenge. I need to get this off my chest, and maybe if someone out there reads it, they'll see what I missed or understand what I'm going through. It started about 3 months ago. My wife Lisa and I had been together for almost 8 years. We built a life, good jobs, a cozy apartment, plans for the future. She's the kind of woman who always seemed dependable, loyal, the kind who'd never cheat, or so I thought. One day I was working late. Nothing unusual, client meetings, reports, the usual grind. When I got home, the apartment was dead silent. No sign of Lisa. That's strange, she's usually waiting for me or at least has a snack ready. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. My stomach sank a little, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was out with friends or had a late shift. The next day, I decided to check our apartment's security camera footage. I'd set it up a few months ago after a minor break-in in the building. When I reviewed the footage from the night before, I saw her slip out of the apartment just after I left for work. Nothing unusual about that, except the place she went to wasn't just the grocery store or a friend's house. It was a hotel downtown. Yeah, a hotel. And she stayed there for hours. Her meeting with someone, her boss, I guess. The footage was grainy, but I saw her enter the hotel lobby, then go up in the elevator. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Why would she meet him there? I didn't even know they were close enough for that kind of secret meeting. My mind started racing. Red flags, maybe. She'd been a little distant lately, more preoccupied, more secretive with her phone. But I'd ignored it, convinced I was overthinking. Now seeing her sneaking out at night, that's when the alarm bells really started ringing. I needed to know more, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. So I decided to follow her the next day, see if she'd do anything suspicious again. It was a stupid move, I know, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been blind to what was really going on. I kept my distance, watching her leave the apartment with her bag, the same hotel bag visible in her hand. She left the building, got into a cab, and headed toward the hotel. I didn't think, just acted. I followed the cab at a distance, my palms sweaty, stomach tight. When she finally checked into that hotel alone, I leaned against the car, trying to keep my composure. My skin felt hot, and my hands were trembling just a little. That's when I saw her come out a few hours later. She looked flushed, maybe even a little guilty. She hurried into the cab, and I watched her disappear down the street. That's when I started questioning everything. The trust I'd built with her, the life I thought was so solid, it was all cracking apart. What really hit me was the physical evidence. The hotel bag, her face when she left, the secretive texts I'd ignored earlier. I was starting to see the cracks in the facade I'd trusted so blindly. The puzzle was coming together, piece by piece, but I still wasn't ready to confront her yet. I needed more proof. Something solid that I could hold in my hands and say, here, what I know. The next couple of days were torture. Every time my phone buzzed, I thought it was her trying to explain or deny. But deep down, I knew what I'd seen. I had to prepare myself for a confrontation I wasn't sure I was ready for. Still, I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to find out the truth, no matter how ugly it was. And so I kept watching, waiting for the next move. I knew I couldn't let this slide. She had betrayed me, and I had to decide what to do about it. But the real question was, which betrayal cut deeper, her secret meetings or what I'd find out next? The days that followed were the worst of my life. Every minute was a slow, aching wait for the next piece of the puzzle to fall into place. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep properly. My mind kept replaying the footage, her face in that hotel lobby, her hurried steps to the cab, the guilty look she wore like a mask. That's when I found the second piece of evidence, the one that changed everything. One evening I decided I'd had enough of waiting. I needed to see her again, really see her. I told her I was staying late at work, but instead I parked across the street from our apartment and waited. From my hiding spot, I saw her leave the building just past midnight, clutching her purse tightly. She looked over her shoulder, then hurried toward a familiar black SUV parked down the street. My stomach twisted. I recognized the car, her boss's. I'd seen it a few times before, but never this late at night. She slipped inside, and I watched the vehicle drive away, headlights piercing the darkness. I kept my distance, heart pounding, trying to figure out what this meant. Was she really cheating? Was she just a victim of some kind of affair, or was there more going on? When the SUV disappeared around the corner, I finally felt the weight of it settle into my chest. That's when I noticed something else, something I hadn't seen before. Her purse was still in her hand, but a small, crumpled piece of paper peeked out from inside. It was a note, torn from a notepad with a simple message scribbled on it. "Tonight is important, don't forget." I felt my blood run cold. That wasn't just a casual meeting. It was planned, deliberate. Somehow I knew this wasn't just about her professional relationship. It was something more, something she was hiding from me. I clenched my fists, feeling a mixture of anger and betrayal. The next morning I went through her things when she was out. I found her phone, of course. I knew I shouldn't invade her privacy, but I needed answers. I scrolled through her messages, nothing explicit but enough to make my stomach turn. Flirty texts, half-hidden conversations with her boss. Nothing outright, but the tone was unmistakable. Then I stumbled on a message thread. It was from a few nights ago. She'd been texting with someone named M, supposedly her boss. The messages were vague, but the tone was intimate, like two people sharing secrets they shouldn't. I read phrases like "can't wait to see you again" and "tonight's the night we finally make it right." My hands went cold. I felt my heart race, fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. I was staring at evidence that confirmed what I'd already suspected. She was lying to me. She'd been sneaking around with her boss probably for weeks, maybe longer. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the screen, trying to process it all. The woman I loved, the woman I'd trusted with my life, she'd been unfaithful, not just once but repeatedly. Every lie, every secret meeting, every glance she gave him, that was all I needed to know. My mind flashed back to the hotel footage and her leaving late at night. It was all there. I didn't cry, didn't yell. I just sat there, cold and numb. But deep inside, I knew I had to do something. I had to plan my next move carefully. I couldn't just storm in and accuse her. No, I needed the upper hand, something she wouldn't expect. That's when I realized I'd be doing her a favor by catching her in the act again. I had to be ready. I had to make her realize I knew everything. And I'd make her regret betraying me. The question was, how? I started digging into her schedule, trying to figure out her routines, her contacts, her habits. Nothing that screamed cheater on paper, but enough subtle clues to confirm she was hiding something. I needed a plan, a way to turn her own secrets against her. I decided I'd stage a scene, something that would make her trip up, slip, reveal herself without me having to say a word. I wasn't going to let her just walk away like this, not after all the lies. I'd make her see that I had her cornered, and then I'd confront her. But first, I needed to know where she'd go next. I kept watch for any sign, any hint. It wasn't just about catching her. This was about sending a message. She needed to understand I wasn't the fool she thought I was. And I knew deep down this wasn't just about the cheating. It was about who she was, something I'd missed for so long. But now I had all the pieces and I was ready. The game was on. The plan started forming in my head like a shadow creeping across the wall. I wasn't going to confront her blindly or blow everything up without a safety net. No, I needed the perfect moment, something that would force her to reveal herself without me having to say a word. I wanted her to trip over her lies, to expose the truth herself, and I'd be waiting for her when she did. First, I needed her to slip up again. I watched her routines like a hawk, her work schedule, her usual grocery runs, even the times she'd be out with friends. Nothing out of the ordinary, but I knew her pattern was about to change. I had to be ready when it did. That night I waited until I saw her leave the apartment, looking over her shoulder, the same hurried way she always did. I followed her at a distance, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might give me away. She drove to a different part of town, to a place I'd never seen her go, an upscale restaurant with a private parking lot. She got out alone, looking over her shoulder once more, then entered the building. I parked nearby and watched from across the street. Waiting felt like forever, the cold air prickling my skin. When she finally exited 2 hours later, she was flushed, a little shaky, but more importantly, she was alone. No sign of anyone else, no boss, no lover. Just her. I followed her again, this time closer, feeling my nerves tighten. She went into a building that looked like a small hotel or boutique inn. My stomach sank. I knew what she was up to. This was her secret hideaway. I stayed in the shadows watching her slip inside the building. That's when I noticed the key card she used wasn't her own, someone else. My mind spun. Who was she meeting? I kept my distance, crouching behind a parked car. Minutes later, she came out looking around nervously. Her face was pale, her eyes darting left and right like she was afraid of being caught. Her car was parked nearby and she hurried into it. I waited for her to drive off, heart pounding. When she was gone, I snuck into the hotel parking lot and found the room she'd been in. The door was slightly ajar. I hesitated, then pushed it open slowly. Inside, it was a mess. Clothes draped over chairs, a half-empty wine bottle on the dresser. But what caught my eye was her purse lying on the chair. I reached in carefully and found a small plastic bag tucked inside, containing what looked like a tiny vial, some pills, and a folded-up note. I grabbed it all and slipped out quietly. The vial and pills were enough to make my stomach turn. They looked like something she was using to keep her nerves steady. The note was brief. "Tonight's the night. Don't screw up." It confirmed what I had suspected. The meetings weren't just about her boss. They were about something darker. Now I knew for sure she was hiding more than just an affair. Whatever she was involved in, it was dangerous, and I had all the evidence I needed. Sitting in my car, I stared at the items in my hand, feeling a new wave of anger. All these secrets, her lies, her deception, they were about to come crashing down. I took a deep breath. This was the turning point. I'd waited long enough. I knew what I had to do. I started planning my next move, something precise, something devastating but not destructive. I wanted her to realize I knew everything, that I had the proof. I wanted her to feel the cold hand of betrayal clutch her, just as I had. The pieces were coming together, and I was ready to make her pay. I could already see her face, confused, guilty, defeated. That's when I knew this game was about to end, and I was going to make sure she understood exactly what she lost. The question was, what would be the cost of her betrayal, and how far was I willing to go to make her see it? The morning after I found the pills and the note, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My stomach was in knots, and my mind kept spinning with what I now knew. She wasn't just cheating. No, whatever she was involved in was darker than I imagined. I didn't want to jump the gun, but I couldn't ignore the mounting evidence. I had everything I needed to destroy her carefully constructed lie. I spent the day planning my move, trying to keep my nerves from unraveling entirely. I knew I had to keep my cool, but inside I was boiling. Every time I thought about her sneaking around, I felt my fists clench, an urge to confront her right then and there. But I was smarter than that. I had to be calculated. That evening she came home early, unusually quiet. She looked exhausted, her face pale and her eyes darting around like she was afraid of being caught. I could smell her perfume, something floral, fake, but it was mixed with something else, a faint scent of alcohol or maybe some pills. I didn't say a word. I just watched her, feeling the weight of everything I'd uncovered. She finally broke the silence. "Hey, I'm tired, long day, I think I need a drink." Her voice was shaky and she avoided my gaze. That was a red flag in itself. I kept my tone steady but cold. "You've been out a lot lately. Who are you meeting, Lisa?" She hesitated, her shoulders stiffening. "Just work stuff, nothing to worry about." I stepped closer, voice firmer. "That's funny, I followed you last night. You went to a hotel, met someone, your boss, wasn't it?" Her eyes darted even more. "You're overreacting, it's not what you think." I shook my head slowly. "No, I've seen the evidence. The note, the pills, the hotel room." "How long have you been hiding this from me?" She looked like she was about to break, but then she composed herself, her face twisting into a mask of guilt and frustration. "Look, I didn't want to hurt you, it was just complicated. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." I felt my fists tight. "Complicated, that's it. You've been lying for weeks, sneaking around with your boss, maybe doing things you're ashamed of. Well, I'm not stupid anymore." She took a shaky breath. "You're right, I screwed up, but it wasn't just about the cheating. There's more, something I can't explain yet." "I never wanted to hurt you," I cut her off. "Save it, I've heard enough. I've got everything I need now. The hotel, the pills, the note, you're done, Lisa." Her face crumpled and she looked like she might cry. "Please, I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was desperate, trying to find some clarity. I never wanted to lose you." That was the last straw. I was tired of her lies, tired of feeling like a fool. I stepped back, took a deep breath and said, "You need to leave." Pack your bags and go. I want you out of this apartment tonight." She looked at me, eyes wide with shock. "And heartbreak? You're serious?" "Yes," I said, voice hardening. "And I want the keys. Give me the keys, Lisa. I won't have you sneaking around anymore." She hesitated, then slowly reached into her purse. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a small set of keys and handed them to me. I took them, feeling the cold metal bite into my palm. As she turned to leave, I stopped her. "One more thing. Don't ever try to contact me again. If I find out you're still sneaking around or hiding things, I swear I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." She nodded silently, tears streaming down her face as she grabbed her coat. She didn't say a word, only looked at me with a mixture of regret and sadness before walking out the door. I watched her go, feeling an odd mix of relief and rage. In that moment, I knew I'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. I had to deal with the fallout, her accusations, her stories, whatever she would spin to save herself. But I also knew one thing for sure. I was done being the fool in this game. She betrayed me in ways I never thought possible, and I was done playing nice. I sat down on the couch, the keys cold in my hand, and looked around at what was left of our life together. The silence was louder than ever. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just felt a strange sense of closure, knowing I finally had the truth and that I was free. That night I made a decision. I was going to rebuild, but on my own terms, and never again would I ignore the signs. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. The days after she left were a blur of emptiness and clarity. Once the initial shock wore off, I finally allowed myself to breathe, to think about what had really happened and what I wanted next. I won't pretend it was easy. Every corner of the apartment, every little thing I saw reminded me of her. But beneath the pain, there was a strange sense of liberation. I finally saw her for who she was, a woman capable of hiding things so dark she'd thrown away everything we built together. In the quiet, I started piecing things together. Her secret meetings, the pills, the note, everything pointed toward a bigger picture than just cheating. I hadn't wanted to believe it, but I knew I had to face it. She had been involved in something dangerous, and I had to make her see that I knew everything. I spent most of that first week coldly reflecting. I replayed every moment, her nervous glances, her hurried texts, the secret hotel visits. I didn't contact her once. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she still had control. Instead, I used that time to plan my next moves carefully. One thing was clear. I needed to expose her not just to her, but to everyone. Friends, family, anyone who could see her for what she really was. I knew she'd spin her stories, try to manipulate people into feeling sorry for her. I had to be ready with proof, with facts, with everything in order. The first thing I did was gather all the evidence I had, screenshots of her texts, the pills, the note, the hotel footage. I made a detailed timeline mapping out her meetings and her lies. Then I started to draft a message, something direct, factual, and cold, enough to cut through her manipulations. I also reached out to an old friend of mine, someone I knew wouldn't be fooled by her sob stories. I told him everything, gave him the evidence, and asked for his advice. He listened quietly, then said, "You've got to show her you're serious. Don't wait for her to come crawling back. Push her away hard enough she gets the message. She's lost you now, and she's going to regret it." That advice hit me hard. I realized I needed to make her understand I wasn't some pushover anymore. I had to put the final nail in her coffin, but in a way that would make her see what she had lost. No threats, no violence, just the truth laid bare. So I decided to send her a message. I knew she'd be watching, waiting for a sign I'd come back or try to fix things. But I wanted her to see I was done with the games. I typed out what I knew, what I'd uncovered, and how I was going to handle everything. I sent the message. It was cold but direct. I told her I knew about the pills, the hotel, the secret meetings, and the lies. I told her I was going to tell everyone her version of the story, her family, her friends, her colleagues. I didn't threaten, I just laid it out plainly. I watched her social media, waiting to see how she'd react. No reply came, that was fine. I didn't need her validation anymore. I'd done enough damage, and I'd made her realize she couldn't spin her way out of this. The truth was out, and now she had to face it. Meanwhile, I started to rebuild my life piece by piece. I found a new job, moved some of my things into storage, and cut off contact. The apartment was empty, echoing with silence. But in that silence, I found clarity. I realized that betrayal like this doesn't just hurt, it shatters your trust in everything. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. That's when I took the final step. I went to a lawyer, explained everything, and began the process of divorce. I wanted this chapter closed forever. I needed to sever all ties and start fresh. I handed over the keys to the apartment, signed the papers, and watched her name disappear from my life. That night I sat alone in my new place, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I looked around at the empty walls, the silence pressing in. I knew I couldn't undo what she did, but I could decide how I moved forward. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. The lesson I learned: never ignore the warning signs. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And when betrayal comes, don't be afraid to fight back on your own terms. Because at the end of the day, no one will look out for you like you will. Sitting in my new place that night, I finally felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. The silence was deafening, but for the first time in months, it felt peaceful. I looked around at the empty walls, the few boxes still unpacked, and realized I'd finally taken back control. I'd gone through hell, but I didn't let her steal my future. That afternoon, I had handed over the last of her things, including her keys. Watching her walk out the door for good, I felt a strange mix of relief and a strange, bitter satisfaction. Betrayal had cut deep, but I'd managed to turn everything to my advantage. I knew I'd be okay, better than before. Now I want to share what I've learned in case someone else finds themselves in the same dark hole I was in. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore the little red flags. Those are often the loudest warnings you'll get. When something feels off, it probably is. And don't wait too long to confront it. The longer you ignore the signs, the deeper the betrayal runs, and the harder it is to recover. Be honest with yourself. If you see evidence of cheating, manipulation, or hiding things, trust that. Don't let guilt or hope blind you. Sometimes the truth is ugly and it hurts, but denial only makes it worse in the end. It's better to face it head on, even if it's painful. And finally, stand your ground. Do what's necessary to protect yourself. Don't let anyone manipulate or guilt you into staying in a toxic situation. Love yourself enough to walk away, even if it hurts. Because in the long run, staying silent and pretending everything's okay only prolongs your suffering. I handed her the keys and told her to leave. I filed for divorce, closed that chapter, and began rebuilding. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm stronger now. Betrayal taught me a hard lesson: that trust is fragile, and sometimes people you love will surprise you with just how far they're willing to go. The biggest takeaway: never ignore the signs and never stay in a situation where your trust is broken, because what's left after betrayal isn't worth clinging to. Sometimes the only way to find peace is to walk away, turn the page, and start over. And that's exactly what I did.